Hey Wolf-PAC, Aaron here. So, in case you haven't heard, I'm here to talk about the societal collapse that may or may not take place by 2040. Now, I'm not a news anchor, so I'm not going to bring you the news. In fact, I'll give a short clip and then put a link in the description.
1972, a team of MIT scientists got together to study the risks of civilizational collapse. Their system dynamics model, published by the Club of Rome, identified impending limits to growth, LTG, that meant industrial civilization was on track to collapse sometime within the 21st century due to overexploitation of planetary resources. The controversial MIT analysis generated heated debate and was widely derided at the time by pundits who misrepresented its findings and methods. But the analysis has now received stunning vindication from a study written by a senior director at professional services giant KPMG, one of the big four accounting firms as measured by global revenue. The study was published in the Yale Journal of Industrial Ecology in November 2020 and is available on the KPMG website. It concludes that the current business-as-usual trajectory of global civilization is heading toward the terminal decline of economic growth within the coming decade, and at worst could trigger societal collapse by around 2040. Now, this new analysis looked at data across 10 key variables to arrive at this conclusion, including population, fertility rates, mortality rates, industrial output, food production, services, non-renewable resources, persistent pollution, human welfare, and ecological footprint. Now, it's important to note here that this does not mean that humanity itself will all die. What this does mean is that essentially capitalism will collapse. Megan Day replies saying, capitalism means that a small minority owns everything required to meet human needs. Unable to meet their needs independently, the majority have to sell their labor to the minority for less than it's worth in exchange for a wage with which to purchase their own means of survival. By definition, it does not work for the good of any national category of people. It works for the good of one class, the capitalist class, which is perpetually rewarded with profit for already owning what society needs to reproduce itself at the expense of everyone else. In addition to, of course, the climate crisis, which I'll get to in a second as well, as models around how much time we have left to reverse the climate crisis is right in line with this study that looks at societal collapse. So a little more on these various models. So this is BAU2, the business as usual scenario. So this is one of the more, so there are two scenarios that are based on the analysis most likely. This is one of them, BAU2, essentially meaning a halt in growth within a decade or so, and then eventually societal collapse. As you see, resources decline, population decline, industrial output decline, food decline, while pollution continues increasing at a rapid pace. The other most likely scenario is the CT scenario. This stands for comprehensive technology. This also shows a halt in growth within the next decade or so, but not societal collapse. So you see here, I think this model appears to show that if there is enough of an investment into stopping the continued growth of pollution, then you see population, while still declining, does not decline as much as it did in the BAU2 scenario. And industrial output, while also declining, is not declining at the same rate as it was under BAU2. Focusing on the pursuit of continued economic growth for its own sake will be futile. The study finds that technological progress and increased investments in public services could not just avoid the risk of collapse, but lead to a new, stable, and prosperous civilization operating safely within planetary boundaries. But we really have only the next decade to change course. We only have the next decade to change course. Sound familiar? This from 2018. We have 12 years to limit climate change catastrophe, warns UN. Urgent changes needed to cut risk of extreme heat, drought, floods, and poverty, says IPCC. Now, of course, this IPCC report focuses completely on the climate crisis, but the climate crisis and capitalism are directly linked.
So this past weekend, I went to go visit family because it was my grandma's memorial service. And while that's sad to know that my grandma's passed in this world, it was even sadder to see my teenage cousin, who by the time he's my age, could be faced with societal collapse. This is not a promising idea for me. In fact, it keeps me up at night thinking about the fact that we may or may not be living in the America that we know today in 10, 15, 20 years. It's crazy to think of that our society could collapse and all that jazz, but it hasn't collapsed yet. Every day our society remains intact is another day that we can fight, which is why I need you to help me in this fight. Join Wolf-PAC, join other organizations fighting for a cause that you believe in. But join the movement in helping our society, democracy, our environment, wherever you see fit. But you have to join the fight. You have to get involved. It may take some of your hobby time away from you. It may take your time from your side hustle, which has really been helping you like live this dream. Because you know what? The idea that you can become an actor in 5 to 10 years isn't really a worthwhile goal if the society collapses in the meantime. It doesn't really matter if you get a house, if the house can just be taken by gangs of thieves in 15 years.